For every loved Spider-Man adaptation, there is one which fans hate. Starting with Andrew Garfield, who was once hated by every Spider-Man fan. Not because Andrew didn't try, he acted his heart out. The problem was the character direction. Fans felt like this Spider-Man didn't act like Peter Parker at all. He was too smooth, too edgy, too sarcastic in ways that felt forced, almost like the writers were trying to turn Peter into a skater boy heartthrob instead of the awkward, nerdy kid fans knew. Andrew wasn't hated, the movies were. The movies were because they pretty horrendously written, especially the second. On top of that, the writing kept pulling this version of Peter into melodramatic plots, strange parent conspiracies, and emotional beats that felt disconnected from what fans expect from Spider-Man. For years, Andrew's Spider-Man was labeled too cool and too moody, and when the Amazing Spider-Man collapsed under studio interference, this version of Spider-Man became the easy target, taking the blame for decisions Andrew never made.
It was story and character were actually not top of the priority list ultimately.
Got it. Yeah.
And I found that really tricky. I signed up to serve the story and to serve this incredible character that I've been dressing as since I was 3.
Yeah.
And then it gets compromised and it breaks my heart. I got heartbroken.
Most people don't seem to have strong feelings on the first one, but the second one is widely disliked mainly due to its messy plot and writing, poor pacing, bizarre music choices, and lackluster villains with poorly developed motivations. Not necessarily saying I agree or disagree with these, just that they seem to be the common complaints. It took No Way Home to redeem him, but back when these movies dropped, he was absolutely considered one of the least liked versions of Spider-Man ever put on screen. If Andrew's Spider-Man felt like the character drifting away from his roots, Insomniac Spider-Man felt like coming home. This version of Peter Parker didn't need a movie to win people over. The moment the game dropped, fans immediately said the same thing: it looks so good. It feels like this is what the Spider-Man movies should have been. Insomniac nailed everything at once. He's experienced but still learning. He's confident but still insecure. He's heroic but painfully human. You feel his stress juggling rent, responsibility, breakups, friendships, science work, and crime fighting. He makes mistakes, pays for them, and tries again. Just a grown-up Peter who finally feels like he's lived the life we've read about for decades. Fans call him the most balanced Spider-Man ever because he embodies both sides perfectly. Peter Parker's vulnerability plus Spider-Man's responsibility. He is without a doubt a true Spidey, always getting beaten the crap out of, always have to pick responsibilities over personal, always in the mud. That's the Peter I love. Even his fighting style, web swinging, and suit design became instant classics. Players didn't just control him, they understood him. That's why he stands as one of the most loved Spider-Mans in the entire multiverse. And while Insomniac's Peter represents everything fans want Spider-Man to be, the next version is the complete opposite. A Spider-Man who went from beloved in the comics to hated in animation for one movie alone. Spider-Man 2099 used to be a fan favorite. In the comics, Miguel O'Hara's was cool, complex, and one of the most popular alternate Spider-Men ever created. Then Across the Spider-Verse happened, and suddenly he became one of the most hated versions in the entire fandom. Not because the character isn't interesting, but because of how he was portrayed. I personally wasn't going in expecting Spider-Verse to be one-to-one comic accurate or anything, when pretty much none of the characters are. They just kind of fit the story that's being told. In this movie, Miguel wasn't a mentor. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't even a hero half the time. He was the antagonist, treating Miles like a mistake instead of a person. Honestly, what I hate most about Spider-Verse 2099 is that he's still a really good character. He just so happens to be nothing like his comic counterpart. Fans hated how he weaponized the idea of canon events, acting like Miles had no right to exist, no right to save his own father, no right to make his own choices. It felt cruel in a way Spider-Man characters usually don't go.
Inspector Singh's death was a canon event. You weren't supposed to be there, and you weren't supposed to save him. That's why Gwen tried to stop you.
And the moment he said Miles was never supposed to be Spider-Man, the entire internet switched on him instantly. Suddenly this version of Miguel wasn't cool anymore. He was the guy who chased a 15-year-old through multiple universes just to tell him he doesn't belong. Even his design, once loved, started getting roasted for the glowing red eyes and vampire-like energy. And memes exploded the moment he tackled Miles in front of everyone. I hate how so many Spider-Verse fans were just confidently claiming he was a vampire. The hate wasn't subtle. It was loud, immediate, immediate and everywhere. Fans didn't see a protector. They saw a bully wearing a Spider-Man suit. And that's the crazy part. 2099 was supposed to be a highlight of the Spider-Verse franchise, but Across the Spider-Verse flipped him into one of the most disliked Spider-Men overnight. But while 2099 showed the darkest interpretation of a Spider-Man, the next version is the exact opposite. A Spider-Man who became a legend, not through animation or games, but by defining an entire generation. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man isn't just loved, he's foundational. Before the MCU, before multiverses, before billion-dollar superhero trends, there was Tobey. His version of Spider-Man shaped an entire era. He didn't rely on CGI quips or flashy choreography. He carried those movies with sincerity, awkward charm, and raw emotion. Tobey played Peter Parker like he actually lived the struggle, the rent, the heartbreak, the responsibility, the loss. His Spider-Man felt vulnerable, grounded, and genuinely heroic in a way that still hits even 20 years later. Tobey is the best when it comes to the overall package of being Spider-Man. He really nails the awkward, nerdy side of Peter Parker. However, I feel like Andrew really nailed the emotional struggle of him adapting to his new powers. They really took their time with how frightening the experience must be at first, with your senses amped up to 11. Scenes like stopping the train, the upside-down kiss, the black suit breakdown, the final walk away, they didn't just become movie moments, they became cultural memories. Then No Way Home brought him back, and the reaction said everything. The Spider-Man many of us grew up with, and his return is glorious. No entrance has ever earned a louder theater scream. Fans cried seeing him again. He didn't need to fight, flex, or take over the movie. Just being there reminded everyone why he's still loved today. And while Tobey represents the heart of Spider-Man, the next entry shows how confusing things can get when Spider-Man is reinvented so drastically that fans don't even recognize what they're watching. Japanese Spider-Man isn't hated because he's bad. He's hated because fans didn't know what to do with him. When Western audiences first discovered Takuya Yamashiro's Spider-Man, the reaction was pure confusion. Yeah, gonna need some of you hardcore fans to enlighten me here. Why the heck does Japanese Spider-Man have a submachine gun? Does it shoot webbing? This wasn't Peter Parker. This wasn't New York. This wasn't anything remotely close to the Spider-Man people grew up with. Instead of juggling school and responsibility, Takuya is a motorcycle racer. Instead of getting powers from a radioactive spider, he gets them from an alien. Instead of fighting small-time villains, he pilots a giant robot named Leopardon. For longtime Spider-Man fans, it felt like someone had taken the name Spider-Man, slapped it on a completely unrelated show, and called it a day. This Spider-Man throws human thugs off of buildings and doesn't even shoot webs to catch them like other Spider-Men, and that's where the hate came from. Not anger, but disconnect. They treated the show like a parody instead of understanding that Japanese tokusatsu had its own style, its own pacing, its own tone. To Western fans, it looked wrong. To Japanese fans in the 70s, it was a hit. But in modern fandom spaces, Takuya gets placed on least favorite Spider-Man lists simply because he's the furthest from what people expect Spider-Man to be. That doesn't make him bad, but it does make him one of the most divisive Spider-Men ever made. And while Takuya represents the strangest reinvention of the character, the next Spider-Man is the opposite the version Marvel spent years refining, balancing, and polishing until he became the center of an entire cinematic universe. Tom Holland's Spider-Man became beloved because he finally struck the balance fans had been waiting for. Peter Parker's awkwardness plus Spider-Man's confidence. Marvel didn't try to make him edgy or overly serious or overly dramatic. They let him be a teenager, messy, impulsive, emotional, hopeful, all while throwing him into the biggest cinematic universe ever created. Fans love that his story doesn't revolve around being perfect. I definitely feel he gives the best performance out of all live-action Spider-Man actors. Not to say Tobey or Andrew give bad performances, I just like Tom's better. But the real turning point was No Way Home. That movie took the MCU Spider-Man from the fun kid of the Avengers to a fully realized Peter Parker. He lost everything. He rebuilt from nothing. He finally stepped into the classic, lonely, low-tech Spider-Man path fans wanted since day one. No more Stark tech, no more Happy, no more Aunt May, MJ, and Ned, knowingly who Peter Parker is. A whole new life for him. This version of Spider-Man didn't just entertain audiences, he became the emotional center of the MCU's future. He feels like Spider-Man. And while the MCU gave fans a version that fits almost perfectly, the next Spider-Man shows the exact opposite. Miles Morales is one of the most loved Spider-Men ever today, But the PS5 Miles Morales game didn't launch into love. It launched into backlash. Loud, messy, and mostly unfair. Before anyone even touched the controller, a chunk of the gaming community reacted with instant negativity, not because the game was bad, but because it wasn't Peter. Players complained that the game felt too small, that it was a DLC sold as a full release, that Miles didn't earn his own title yet, or that Insomniac was forcing him into the spotlight. I believe they released it just because they wanted to introduce Miles Spider-Man before the next game. They could have just released it as a DLC, I think, because it was just too short. The PS5 launch drought made people desperate for big releases. When Miles Morales became one of the flagship launch titles, suddenly everyone wanted it to be something it wasn't designed to be, a full-blown Spider-Man 2. When fans realized it was focused, shorter, and character first, the backlash exploded. People dragged the length, the price, the snow-filled NYC map, the electric Venom abilities, even the soundtrack. None of this was about Miles himself. It was about expectations clashing with reality. And for the first few months, social media was filled with, why is this a standalone game? Why isn't Peter the main character? Miles is just a sidekick. This doesn't feel like a real Spider-Man story. Some critics even said Miles was too similar to Peter's gameplay, while others said he was too different. A contradiction that showed the hate wasn't coming from logic, just stubbornness. And while this version faced the most resistance, the next Spider-Man didn't just overcome hate. He became one of the most universally loved heroes of the modern era. Miles Morales from the Spider-Verse became everything fans wanted Spider-Man to evolve into. Miles is his own Spider-Man, with his own voice, his own culture, his own challenges, and his own emotional center, and fans connected to him instantly. Spider-Verse is the definitive Miles, one of those adaptations that surpassed the original source material. Into the Spider-Verse didn't just introduce Miles, it made people fall in love with him. The art style, the music, the writing, the heart, every part of his story felt fresh and personal. And it got comments like, by far the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. One of the greatest movies of all time. He showed that anyone can wear the mask without losing what makes Spider-Man meaningful. His relationships feel real. His family dynamics hit harder than anything in the franchise. His chemistry with Gwen became one of the most iconic modern duos. And his growth across two films is deeper than some heroes get in entire trilogies. Miles doesn't try to replace the classic Spider-Man. He expands the legacy. He carries the torch forward without dimming theirs. And that's why he's one of the most beloved Spider-Mans of all time. Fans don't just enjoy watching him, they root for him like he's family. He represents the future of the character, the evolution of the mythos, and the Spider-Man who speaks to a new generation without forgetting the past. He isn't the next Spider-Man. He is Miles Morales, and for millions of fans, that's enough to put him at the top of the loved list.